Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Football Culture Podcast. My name is James Bolam, and we've had a little bit of a winter break, but we are now back with a new episode. Our last episode was on football in Milan. Excellent episode with some great guests, so check that out if you can in our back catalogue. Today, we're leaving Europe, and we're not even looking at a footballing city in this episode, but we're actually looking at an entire country with a fascinating history and a very important football culture. It is Colombia in Latin America. And there have been people living in Colombia for many, many centuries, long before the Spanish arrived. But arrived they did, as they did on most of the continent. And as I say, it's got a rich cultural history as well as a important football history. I've got a guest with me today who is from Colombia, Juan Pablo. Great to have you here, JP, and introduce yourself to the listeners.
Hi, James. Thanks for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. And okay, about me, I live here in Valencia, in Spain, and I've been around the world for a while, and I lived in Argentina for quite a time. And nowadays, I am part of a football team. I have the UEFA C license as a football coach, and I am the third assistant on a football team under 16 and 18 years old.
Okay, cool. And who is your team in Colombia? Who do you support?
Yeah, I was born in Bogota, and my team is Millonarios, who is like I would say that is the most popular team in the city, and one of the three most popular in the country.
Okay, yeah, one of the big clubs. And Bogota, of course, is the capital of Colombia. Okay, cool. Okay, well, so football, as it was in a lot of South America, was brought by the British, and I believe the railways were involved. And it may have come through the Caribbean as well. Is that right?
Yeah, it's true. That was the way ships were entering the country. And at the beginning, it was used more for people from the US. And they brought the baseball culture, yeah. And most of British people came to South America, and they will focus on the south of South America, and that's why football was played earlier in Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay, all of those countries. But doesn't mean that it didn't happen in Colombia. It was not as popular as in these countries of the south of South America, but it was played. It was a different thing.
It's like a slower burner, as it were.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because we have Colombia borders Venezuela, and in Venezuela, baseball is the main sport. Football is secondary, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, in Colombia, the thing was that during those times, especially in the 20s, 1920s, football was regarded as a working class sport. Yeah, so they were not paying attention to what's going on, and actually, the elite of society in Colombia, they were more focused on tennis, golf, because they thought that maybe by playing those sports they could put Colombia in the map. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What happened is that during those 20s, if you know, and I suppose many people who are listening to this knows. Uruguay was like the best football team in the world. Yeah, they were winning the Olympics. They were winning. They won 2 Olympics. That's why they have the 4 stars in their badge. And they also were winning the World Cups. And they realized that every time they were opening the newspaper, they had some news about Uruguay. And they couldn't believe that why such a small country like Uruguay was so popular around the world, just because they were doing it well at playing football. So that's how they created some interest in football, and they stopped considering it like football, like a working class sport, and they took it more seriously. Yeah, and actually that's when they start creating like the federations. There was not one federation; they were divided in different areas of the country. And in 1924, you have like the one that is like in the the one called the Atlántico, which is like the one near the Caribbean, that was founded in 1924. And then they decided to unify. Yeah. So this is curious because last year the Colombian Federation, they were celebrating the 100th anniversary, but it was not that. They took it from that federation that happened, because actually the Colombian Federation was founded in 1945 or 46, if I'm not wrong. Mm-hmm. So this celebration was kind of fake, but it was like the first, like, let's say, like the first stage to create a football culture in the country.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned Uruguay, because they won the first 2 World Cups. It's pretty incredible that Uruguay do so well, so consistently for such a small place, such a small country, and with such a small population. But they consistently show up in the tournaments, and to have 2 World Cups, more than England, is impressive. Okay, so there was a situation. So a league was formed in Colombia. Obviously, by this point, football has taken off a little bit more. It's not frowned upon so much as it was, and the Colombian league's formed. But I believe that there was a rival league that was formed that was outside of FIFA, and this was known as the El Dorado period.
Okay, the situation of El Dorado has to do with the Argentinian league. Yeah.
Okay.
Because they were some of the players, they were on strike because they didn't want to, or they thought that they were not paying enough. So they decided to stop the league, and they were trying to negotiate with the Argentinian Federation, and then the Colombian league, as they wanted to rise and show that they were they had the money and they could thrive and they could bring these players and everything. They started signing all of those players, not only from Argentina, also from Peru. That at that moment they had a rich culture also in football, from Brazil as well. And they created these super teams in Colombia, in which you can have players like Di Stefano, who I think is the most popular one. Also, you can get to have Colombia got to, let's say, enjoy for a couple of matches, but Garrincha played also in Colombia.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was in the twilight of his career, but he played as well. And the twilight of his career matches with the end of the El Dorado. So it was kind of curious, this thing. And about what you say, it was considered illegal because the money they were paying to players, and the way they got these players, it was not fair. So the Argentinian Federation complained, and FIFA decided, okay, you're right. So if you don't change this, we're going to have to sanction, and you're going to not to be considered an official league. But they didn't care because it was working, in the country. Everybody was interested, and they were going to stadiums. They were supporting teams. Actually, the teams were very interesting, and it was a combination of Argentinians, Colombian, Brazilian. It was an interesting league at that point. Unfortunately, there was not a tournament like Libertadores or something at that moment, because if not, Colombia would have had more championships and everything. And as they continued doing it, they ignored the warning. So it was okay, so you are not allowed to qualify for the World Cup in Switzerland and Sweden. So that's why the first appearance in a World Cup for Colombia is in 1962.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
no, continue.
Okay, no, and I was going to say due to this situation, and it has to do because it's all connected. No, you have Di Stefano as the main player that you have in Colombia. It's weird. He's coming from River Plate, and there's a good relationship between Millonarios, my team, and River Plate, and it has to do not only with Stefano but also with Real Madrid, because I don't remember the year, to be honest, but Real Madrid was celebrating their 15th anniversary, and they were looking for teams to compete in a friendly tournament in Madrid. So they decided to look for other good teams in different places of the world. I think they brought one from Sweden. I don't remember the other, and it was Millonarios. But they came to Millonarios because the team they had in mind was River Plate in Argentina. They go and talk to them. They say, okay, we want you to come to join a friendly tournament just to celebrate our anniversary, and we think you're the best team in South America. But the problem was that many of these players that used to play for River Plate, now they were playing in Colombia. But the person in charge of River Plate at that moment, the president, he said, like, thank you for the invitation, but at this moment, the best football is in Colombia, and it's Millonarios. So they invite Millonarios, they go to Madrid, and actually that friendly tournament, Millonarios won it, and they defeated Real Madrid 4-2. Yeah, and then after that, they played other matches. They played like 4 or 5 matches during that era, and Real Madrid never defeated Millonarios. But the first victory they got against us was in 2012. Another friendly tournament, but we lost to them against Mourinho's Real Madrid 8-0. So it was like, okay, so they couldn't win for 4 matches in the past, but now they destroyed us.
They made the most of it in the end, yeah.
Yeah, sadly.
And this match, it sparked the interest in Alfredo Di Stefano between Barcelona and Real Madrid as well, didn't it?
Yeah, sadly. That was when they rose the interest and they wanted to hire him. But the thing is that this political situation in Spain made him go to Real Madrid instead of Barcelona. Yeah, it was like governmental decisions.
Yeah. We won't go into that. There's an entire podcast in itself on that situation. And well, you talk about sliding doors moments, but if Alfredo Di Stefano goes to Barcelona, do Real Madrid become as big as they are now? We will never ever know. But yeah. So the El Dorado period ends sooner or later, yeah, because it's outside FIFA, and eventually this ends.
Yeah.
So,
the thing is that they couldn't afford it for so long. So
yeah. And so the any of the titles that were won during this El Dorado period, are they still counted, or are they seen as unofficial?
No, they can't.
Oh, they do count.
Actually, yeah. They were never removed from history. They're part of the leagues. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. So you had Di Stefano, all these great players. I believe Charlie Mitten, who played for Manchester United, he was there as well. There are some good articles on his time there, which is interesting because obviously we had, you're saying that the league came about because of players not being happy about what they were being played. Of course, like in England, we had a maximum wage up until the 1960s. So for someone like Charlie Mitten, it's a golden opportunity for him to earn some money. But that's another story.
Yeah, okay. And also there were some other players from Hungary as well. That golden age, they played in different teams in Colombia, and some of them, once they retired, they stayed there and they lived there. So it was. I mean, I always talk about this, and every time they mention El Dorado, the focus is Argentina, but there were people from lots of countries who went there.
Yeah, the Margars, some of that amazing Hungary team. Okay, so in terms of the clubs in Colombia, then, so is it fair to say that the club that's regarded, the club that's got the most titles, but regarded as perhaps the biggest, would that be Atlético Nacional?
Unfortunately, they are.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll come on to this, but I take it they must be a rival of Millonarios. So okay, so they're from Medellin, is that correct?
Yeah.
Is that the biggest city in Colombia, or?
In terms of population, the biggest city is Bogota. And because of all the political and social situation, it's quite interesting to find out that Bogota can reunite people who are fans from different teams of Colombia, and they all live there. So, for example, if there's a finals, there's a finals of the league in Colombia, and one of the teams who are playing the finals is from Bogota, the rival is going to have the same, or let's say 30% of the attendance for them, and they are going to complete it because lots of people live there. So yeah, that's an interesting thing, because actually people from Colombia, they think that I mean, yeah, Atlético Nacional, I think, is the most popular team in the country. Yeah, it's like the equivalent to Boca Juniors in Argentina. Everybody is like the one they follow, and of course they can go anywhere and they are going to leave the stadium full. Yeah, but in Bogota, the funny thing is that you have a mixture of teams, so everybody can go and can feel the attendance. Yeah. It doesn't matter if it's one of the two most important teams, Millonarios or Independiente Santa Fe, which I think Charlie Mittens played in that one. Or the other two that they are like a little bit lower. They are not so popular, but the same thing. People go and they fill the stadiums.
Yeah. Okay. So let's look at Bogota then. So you've got Independiente Santa Fe and Millonarios. What's the difference between the two clubs? Because they're both successful clubs. They both have won a lot of titles in Colombia. What's the difference between the two clubs within the city?
Actually, okay, nowadays I would say that the main difference is how faithful the fans are.
Okay.
Yeah? In the case of my team, in the case of Millonarios, it doesn't matter how good or how bad they're going. People always go and support them. Yeah, it doesn't matter that we can have the worst team in the year and you can have 30,000 people go into the stadium supporting them. And on the other hand, Independiente Santa Fe, unfortunately, they don't have this culture of like bringing people to the stadium, and people get interested once they are competing to win. Yeah, that when they're so close to win the league or something is when you see they appear. Yeah. And we're talking about a team that they won the secondary tournament in South America, the Sudamericana Cup. Yeah. They won it in 2015, and they got interesting players. I suppose you know Jerry Mina. Yeah. He played in that team, and they won it. But they got interested in that moment because they were, strong contenders to win it, and they won it. But then they disappeared. And that's like the funny thing about them. Santa Fe is the first champion of the league, in history. But and the rivalry goes in this way. It also has some political connotations because they belong to one party. Millonarios belongs to another party. It's like or belonged. I wouldn't say now, but in the past they belonged to different parties. So it was like it has also this political color, let's say, and I think that the rivalry and the importance of those things go in that way. Yeah, the Santa Fe is like the first team, like the one who always, like the one who put Bogota in the map and the one that broke everything. And Millonarios was like the one who won more championships, who had like created more history because of El Dorado, those players, and how people behave and how faithful they are. Yeah. To go there, support them no matter what. It's like the main difference. Yeah, I would say that maybe Santa Fe's fans they're more critical. So if they see that something is not going well, they complain. Millonarios, they don't. They go no matter what.
They're like a more demanding.
Yeah, they're more demanding. Maybe that's the difference. Millonarios got into a drop of being without winning like 24 years, and people were going anyway.
Yeah, it's like here in Seville. There is there's much debate on it, but people say that Sevilla fans are more demanding and that they're less loyal, and Betis fans say it doesn't matter how bad Betis are, they'll still turn up in the stadium. But of course, like Sevilla fans would say, that's not true. We don't abandon our team. We are loyal. We are more demanding fan base than Betis because Betis is happy with failure. We don't. We want to be successful. We want, all these kind of things. There's all these arguments, and that's all part of the fun of having a rivalry, But so, is there like a social divide between the two fan bases?
I would say, and at that time, I don't think it's now. Yeah, and it was basically because the power was centered in Bogota. I'm talking about politics.
Yeah.
And just so you know, Colombia, until let's say right now, there's a left party, who tries to be like equal to the right party. But this is new. Colombia has always been like ruled by the right wing. So you have the extreme right or right, but never. It's quite similar to the United States. Yeah, and Independiente Santa Fe belonged to the like libertarian part, whereas Millonarios was like the more conservative one. Yeah, and actually they were distinguished by the colors and everything, but I don't think that is happening right now. Now it's just like you like it, you follow it, and that's it.
Yeah, it's a bit like that here in Seville. You know, traditionally Betis was seen as the people's club. Seville was seen as more of the middle and upper classes, but I mean that's not true at all. You know, living in the city now, you'll see Betis fans that are doing very well in life, and some Sevilla fans that are not doing so well. You know, so that's all changed as time has gone on. Okay, so in terms of Medellin, there where Atlético Nacional are, who are their rivals?
Okay. Their rivals in the city is Independiente Medellín. That's a very similar story to Independiente Santa Fe in Bogotá, but they are not so popular. Yeah, they are like, I don't know, if we divide it like in the pyramid, you have in the first in the peak of the pyramid, you can have Millonarios, Atlético Nacional, and I suppose you know América de Cali.
Yeah.
That's the third one.
Them.
Yeah, and if we go down, we can find Independiente Santa Fe, Atlético Junior. I don't know if it rings a bell or something. It's from Barranquilla. Valderrama used to play there. He's like the talisman of the team. And Deportivo Cali. That's another important team. Valderrama played there as well. And then you have the others who have won, like historically speaking, there are lots of teams, of course, but they are like and then you can find Medellin there. It's a rivalry. It's very important, but it's not as popular as the one you could find in Bogota or in Cali, but it's important for them. And of course, I heard in the previous episode that it doesn't matter how good or how bad you are. Inter fans always want to defeat Milan fans because it means that you're going to have a good week. Yeah. So it's the same thing. Yeah. They're going to love trying to defeat the others. It doesn't matter. For example, last year, it doesn't matter how popular and how powerful Atlético Nacional could be. Last year, Medellin won a match 5-0 and they celebrated for months. It doesn't matter. Yeah, we won. So I would say that's the rivalry. But then through like what's going on later in Colombia and the evolution of the sport in the country, I would say that these three teams, Millonarios, Nacional, and América, they are like the rivals. Yeah. So for example, if in the 90s, for example, the best match or the most important was Atlético Nacional, América de Cali. Yeah, at some other point in history was Millonarios and América de Cali, and nowadays is Millonarios and Atlético Nacional. Yeah.
It's a handful of big clubs,
exactly.
And who their main rival is doesn't have to be within their city, but who they're going for championships with. But then they'll always have their derby against their city rivals.
Exactly.
Okay, interesting. So in Calais and in Medellin, is there any social or political differences in the fan bases there historically, or
between the teams, you mean?
Yeah. So, like, is for example a Deportivo Cali fan and America de Cali fan? Are they of? Does it depend on social background or anything like that, or is it just whoever your team happens to be?
No, it would be something more like the same thing called River Plate and Boca Juniors. Yeah.
Okay.
It's something like that. I mean, I think that in that case, Bogota is the one that is out because both teams come from a different background, and they are also like powerful teams with like. They were created in the best schools in the city, and they were competing and they were growing. But in the case of Medellin, for example, it's Atlético Nacional that is like the equivalent to Boca Juniors, and I would say that in Cali, América de Cali is the equivalent to Boca Juniors, and Cali is like a more structured team. Okay, it was because nowadays it's not going well, but they used to be like more like they had a different type of fans. Yeah.
But I mean, this is the beauty of football. It's just like, I mean, things do change over the years, but a lot of clubs, they do have roots in society. Football is such an important part of society, and there are these traditions. I mean, in Brazil, like there are some clubs that the people of a Portuguese background would support Vasco da Gama, whereas the Italian community would support Palmeiras, and all this kind of stuff. So it's interesting how society shapes the clubs and their fan bases.
Yeah.
Okay. So in Colombia, from the 1960s, there's been a lot of civil unrest over a long period of time.
Yeah.
I don't want to sort of play anything down and say a minor civil war, because it's kind of a civil war, but I mean, it's not completely destabilized the country in the sense that the civil war in Spain did or something like that, or in other countries. But this is something that has raged for a while. How obviously this has had a big impact on society, but how has it affected football, if in any way, if at all?
Okay, I was checking about that, and I was thinking about it, and actually I wouldn't say that they are directly impacting or in the society, in the football culture, but I have to say that there has been some particular situations that, due to these conflicts, they have like football has been used like somehow to do some, to reach something. Yeah. For example, in 1948 there was a very famous politician that it was like, if you're familiar to, no, it was very similar to what you can find in Argentina with Perón, or what you can find with, I don't know, like this type of leaders that they move masses and everybody loved them, and he was killed in the middle of a speech, and that provoked a civil war in Bogota. Yeah. So that's like the talking about the internal conflicts, and they are quite related to what I was telling you of the division of the teams in Bogota and the political parties. And as they didn't want to share power with any other, so it was like basically they agreed that for one governmental period, the blue party was going to rule, and then it was going to be the red party, and then again the blue one and the red one. So that was the reason why all of these political and social problems were created, because there were, okay, what about like other type of parties or other type of opinions who can be part of the democracy, but they didn't allow them. Yeah.
There's no room for extreme right or extreme left, for example.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It was just them, and they just centralized the power on those parties. They agreed on that. And for example, when this politician died, there was a civil war. Just like a little detail that you can find there is that Fidel Castro was part of that. He was protesting, and he was like captured. He was caught by the police, and he was in prison for a while. But as you know, at that time, like they didn't have the access to media and information as nowadays. So basically, they covered the newspapers and the information with a football tournament. They took Millonarios, they took Santa Fe, they invited Alianza Lima from Peru, and they invited Libertad from Paraguay, and they played a tournament, and that was what they were talking about in the newspaper. So, of course, people didn't know what was happening with the politician and what with the civil war and everything. That was one way to cover. Yeah. The same thing happened in the 80s, because, okay, we have to know, for those who are not like familiar to the topic, in Colombia, there were 3 guerrilla movements. Yeah, the most popular is FARC, but there was another one that is called ELN, yeah, that they are still active. And there was another that they are no longer part of this. And in 1986, this last one, they took the courthouse under siege. And it was a war, basically, and it was unfortunate. And the only thing the government did to try to cover what was happening was to move the fixture from the league and tell Millonarios and another team, okay, you play today. You were supposed to play tomorrow. You play today at 8, so we can broadcast the match and everybody focuses on the match and we find a solution to the problem. So this is like coming from the government, what they have done, yeah? And in terms of the war that Colombia has been through, I remember that at the beginning of the 2000s, when the last FARC, the guerrilla movement, the most popular one, they were, I don't know, they were in the top. Yeah, they were doing lots of horrendous things, and one of the things they had used to do was to abduct people. Yeah. And they took people in the mountains for years. But there was something particular that was very curious about people who were like, once they were released and they could just go and talk and after. And the most common question was like, what did you do to cope with this? Yeah. And they used to say, we had a radio and could just listen to Atlético Nacional matches. So I was an Atlético Nacional fan, so I could listen to their matches. I was a Millonarios fan, and I was like waiting just to see how they went every weekend. So it was like this, yeah?
Yeah.
And so it was like football was like one of those little things they had in their minds just to escape from reality, at least for 2 hours, once a week, just to know what happens with their teams and celebrate, yeah?
Yeah.
But the particular thing comes when they are talking about the national team. They said that there were situations in which you had like all the army of the guerrilla, all the abducted people watching the match, maybe all together and celebrating Colombia won. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or listening. And they said that the most common thing it happened with this, I don't know if soldiers is the word, but with that army was that once the match was over, they immediately went and played a football match. Because most of the times they were looking for places that had a flat area, because it's in the mountains, but they were looking for a flat area so they could build a little pitch and could play for a while. After Colombia was playing, after Atlético Nacional was playing, or something like that. So that was like a way of escaping from reality that I heard about, and I found it interesting because you don't think about it. And those little details in such a difficult situation can help just to get, I don't know, 2 hours of peace of mind.
Yeah. It shows the power of football. So it's getting hostages through captivity, and then the paramilitaries that are holding them then playing football with them as well. So yeah, and watching together, it just goes to show that it does unite people together. Okay, so obviously there's, from the 60s onwards, there's quite a lot of civil unrest, obviously within Colombia itself. And then from the 70s and the 80s onwards, a new problem arrives in Colombian society, which is the arrival of the drug lords, the narcos as they're known, most famous of which being Pablo Escobar, of course. So now they have a huge part to play in football, don't they? So we were talking earlier about the El Dorado period where if there'd have been a Libertadores, then Colombia get a lot, right? Or Colombian clubs get a lot because they've got the best players. But there's kind of like a second wave of this because what's happening is the narcos are buying the football clubs because there's club ownership in Colombia. I'm right in saying, isn't there? Like apart from, I think one club's owned by fans, but in general, it has the ownership model of the UK or Spain where there's an owner rather than say in Argentina or Germany where they're members clubs. Yeah. And they start buying the clubs and putting lots and lots of money into these clubs, buying players. Of course, this is an ingenious way of laundering money, dirty money through.
What's the best way?
It's the best way because, I mean, if you think about it these days, I'm making no allegations against any particular clubs, but football's unregulated. So, if I've got a load of dirty money that I want to clean, I've got a huge amount of it, a football club is a very easy way to do it, particularly with the transfer system. Where you're giving money to another club, dirty money, and getting clean money back in return, kind of thing. So they get involved in the football clubs. What was the relationship between the clubs and the drug overlords and the effect that it had on Colombian football?
Oh, it was huge. It was huge, and I think that we're still paying the consequences of that. Yeah. Just before I go to this topic, I was going to say something that was very important about FARC, and it was that in 2001, I don't know if you know that Colombia won the only Copa America that they won in history, but that one is kind of it has like a little what if next to it because Argentina didn't participate, and it was Bielsa's Argentina.
Yeah,
and it was because of the abduction of the person who was organizing it. Yeah.
Okay.
And that was the reason why Argentina said we're not playing because it's dangerous. Even though they negotiated with FARC and they released this guy 2 days later, but it was like it was done. So that was I think that was the most impactful thing, yeah, in terms of the violence. Now, talking about this, about the drug dealing situation, and we have to focus on the three main things. Yeah, there's another one which is Independiente Santa Fe, but to be honest, I don't know how was the involvement of the part of these narcos with this team, but with the other three for sure. And I'm going to mention a couple of players, and you tell me if you are familiar to these names. Yeah, because they could have been signed or they were signed by any of those teams. Have you heard about Jose Luis Brown?
Jose Luis Brown? No.
He scored from Argentina. He scored the first goal in the finals in 1986.
Yes, of course, Brown. Yeah. Sorry, threw me. Yeah, because I remember reading a book on the 86 World Cup. It was Maradona with a journalist who wrote the book, and he kept mentioning Brown, and I'm thinking that's got to be some British ancestry in there with a name like Brown. Yeah,
he played with a dislocated arm, if I'm not wrong, that final.
Yeah, I think as well when he played in the final, he was without a club or something bizarre. He'd just been released by a club, and he didn't have a club. It's very strange.
And then Atlético Nacional was, let's say that the one who was like providing for Atlético Nacional was Pablo Escobar. He signed Brown and he played there. Another player, I don't know, a Paraguayan guy, Cabañas.
Cabañas rings a bell, but I'm not.
He was very famous. He used to play for America, de Cali. Goicoechea.
Oh, of course, yeah.
The goalkeeper. He played for Millonarios at that time. Actually, he was in Millonarios when he was part of the World Cup in the 90 in Italy. Francescoli.
Enzo Francescoli.
I've
written an article about him,
but he was. I mean, America de Cali was interested in signing him, but he said no. But that was one of these players. Like the one, like before I told you, Garrincha was part of this El Dorado thing, and nobody knew it. And the last one was Maradona, and actually he got to wear America's T-shirt, the jersey, and then he said no. Because right after that, he signed for Boca Juniors, and I think it was the wisest decision he could have made.
I think, I mean, there might be some people out there that might say Diego going back to Buenos Aires might not be a good idea, but I think signing for a club run by narcos would possibly have been the worst possible scenario for him.
Exactly. And also you have, the head coach from Argentina in the 86, Bilardo. He was the head coach for Deportivo Cali in the 70s, and he got a good relationship with the cartel from Cali. And when they were like, there was like a little beef between the cartel of Cali and the cartel of Medellin. They called Bilardo to negotiate because he was the one who knew everyone. I mean, you have crazy stories about this guy living in Colombia at that time because it was like that. I mean, it was like every time they wanted a player, it was like, it doesn't matter how much money you're asking for, we pay it.
Yeah.
We pay it. Yeah. So that's why there were lots of good players in those things. And I think the one who took the highest benefit was Atlético Nacional in terms of they won an international tournament, the Libertadores in 1989. Yeah, América de Cali, they got to 3 finals in a back to back.
Yeah.
84, 85, 86 against Argentinos Juniors, River Plate, and Peñarol. And they lost the 3.
Yeah. That's an incredible hat trick of defeats.
Sadly.
Particularly as one of them was Argentinos Juniors, who are not a big club at all in Argentina. Yeah.
But I know that the one that hurt the most was the last one, because they lost it in the last minute.
Yeah.
That's the one that hurts the most. And then you have that's in that moment is when you have like the beginning of the rivalry between Atlético Nacional and Millonarios, because Escobar was providing for Nacional. There was another drug dealer, narco, that he was like supporting Millonarios, and they were providing money. I mean, it's the same. It's what you said. What you said before when we were talking. Doesn't matter. Yeah, if you're winning, it's okay. Yeah, if you're losing, you complain, and that's what happened. Yeah, the quarterfinals was between Atlético Nacional and Millonarios, and basically in that Copa Libertadores, everybody knew that the winner was the winner of that rivalry was going to win the cup. Yeah, everybody knew it, because the other part of the fixture was not so strong. I mean, there was Olimpia from Paraguay, which is a great team. But that was the only like danger, let's say. So it was like basically the one that wins this match is going to be the champion, and Atlético Nacional won. And of course, me as a fan, I would say, no, it was cheating. It was because of Escobar. It was not clean. Who knows? Yeah, could have been, couldn't have been.
Yeah, it's. I think it's so endemic in that period that it's and perhaps maybe the extent of how many narcos were involved and to what degree in every club is going to be difficult to prove after the event. So you've got this period then in the 80s where Colombian club football is on the pitch doing fantastic. Obviously, there's a very dark reason behind it, but it's doing very well. And this coincides with something of a golden era in terms of the national team.
Exactly.
So they appear at the World Cup in 1990, having not played since 62, I believe. So they return. Italian 90, I remember as a kid, Valderrama, etc. So during this era, I mean, there's within a same era, there's different levels of it. So you've got Valderrama, Asprilla, Andres Escobar,
Alvarez.
Pablo Escobar. Then you've got René Higuita. Is that the correct pronunciation? The goalkeeper. Higuita, the goalkeeper. And then fast forwarding later to the modern day, we've got the likes of Falcao and James Rodriguez. But this era, this is the team that ever remembers.
Yeah, at the beginning, we were talking about the reason why Colombia became interested in football. It was basically Uruguay. Yeah, they are in the map and we're not. Yeah, I think that unfortunately we haven't won any world championship or something like that. But those players are the ones who put Colombia in the map. Yeah, and coincidentally, this rise of this team has to do with the last part of the narco era, let's say, because if I'm not wrong, in 1989, these narcos, they were just putting a lot of pressure in the referees, and one of them was murdered. Yeah, and in that moment they decide we're not going to continue. Yeah, we're not going to continue with the league. I'm sorry. And they suspended it. Which happens that Atlético Nacional coach Maturana is very famous too. He was the coach for Atlético Nacional, and he was hired as the national team coach, and he had time to prepare the team for the qualifiers and then go to the World Cup. Yeah. So basically, the team is the same Atlético Nacional team with reinforcements from other teams, particularly from Millonarios, América de Cali. And that moment, I mean, it was not so common for us to find a player outside, Colombia. They were all playing there. And it's very curious because you talk about the World Cup in the 1990 in Italy. And there are books about the style of play this team had, You have like Arrigo Sacchi, He had it as a reference for his Milan, And you have Ancelotti who mentioned it as well. And as I told you before, I had been working and studying to become a coach, and you can find information about that team and the way they were playing, and it's amazing because it's like, it was not only that they went and you had like, these guys with exotic hair and they had like a good play style. No, it was like they created and they gave a lot to football. I mean, to say one thing is like right after that World Cup, FIFA realized, goalkeepers can play with feet.
Yeah.
Because of Higuita. And they say, okay, from now on, goalkeepers cannot take the ball with the hands once they get a pass. So, I mean,
Higuita was quite a character. I mean, I remember England playing a friendly against Colombia at Wembley. It was in 1994 or 1995. I don't remember exactly. And the friendlies
95.
at 95, and the friendlies were on pay TV at the time, which I didn't have. So I listened to it on the radio, and I remember the commentator just saying, like, I don't believe it. Like, Higuita has just done a scorpion kick to clear the ball. It was incredible. If I'm sure anyone listening to this has probably seen it, but if you haven't, watch it. It's just incredible.
It's incredible
piece of skill and he decides to try it in that match. And okay, it's a friendly, so it's low stakes. If it all goes wrong, maybe he might not have tried it in a World Cup final, but he was a bit of a character. So it wouldn't surprise me if he did try it in a World Cup final. Yeah.
And actually, due to this, like this boom of the Colombian players, of course, in Colombia, they were like icons and they were in all commercials and everything. And actually, the scorpion kick was created in one commercial.
Yeah,
he was trying it. And at some point, somebody told him, okay, so if you want this to be remembered, you have to play it in a good scenario. Yeah. And I mean, Wembley in 1995, it was the best. He chose the best, but the story behind it is that the coach at that time, he wanted to kill him.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It was very responsible. And right after when they have the break for the first half, the coach was going to basically kill him because of what he did. He said, I did it, and it worked out well. So you cannot say anything.
Yeah.
So it was something very particular in that story behind.
What is it about Colombia as a nation that creates these characters as footballers? So you had Valderrama, who had crazy hair. He's a bit of a character as well. You had obviously Higuita with his scorpion kick, and then of course like Faustino Asprilla would do somersaults when he scored. It's just like and he was a party boy. It's just like it didn't seem. You hear stories of his time at Newcastle. The ex-players just say that he would just like he didn't care. Like no, like in terms of like he would work hard, etc. as a player, but he would just be out all the time having fun. Like not taking life too seriously.
Yeah.
Well, what is it about Colombia and Colombian culture that produces footballers like this?
I think that it has to do with the lifestyle. I mean, I suppose that due to all of the sad situations that happen around us, people find like there's always. I mean, it doesn't matter how bad you are on a day, you're smiling for some reason.
Yeah,
and you try to find that, like, try to show that happiness. You can call it fake happiness, but it worked out. I mean, to deal like to go through the day without like being depressed or something. And there was a day I was like listening to a former Chilean football player that he was a journalist and he was analyzing, I think it was the World Cup in Japan and Korea 2002, and he was criticizing how Chile was performing at that time, and he said something that I think is true. I said like all the countries have some kind of policies, so it's like if you are, let's say for example, if you are Argentinian, you play as you are, And for example, when he was talking about Argentina, he was saying, okay, if you can witness it because you were in Argentina, like the Argentinians are like madness, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they are bohemian, they enjoy life, they have a good time, they think they're better than others, and that's reflected in the pitch. I mean, that's the way they behave.
Yeah, walk through Buenos Aires, and there's like a Buenos Aires strut. The way Argentinians walk is like, I think that's why Oasis was so popular there.
Yeah.
They love that. They have that touch of arrogance about them.
Exactly.
Yeah, but at the same time, that bohemian side of things, and also the love of fun. I mean, it's like you say about Colombian culture, about always smiling. I teach English, and I have some students from Colombia, and they are always happy. Like they're always smiling. They're always like, "Hey, James, how's it going?" You can just see that it's just an enjoyment of life.
Exactly, and when this guy was talking about Colombia, he said, Colombia plays and like to play like the music they have in their country. Like, and if you see, and I was like, when he said that, I tried to visualize it like with that team with Valderrama, and you see like the way they were passing the ball and moving, it was like if they were dancing.
Yeah.
So that brings happiness. Yeah. I know nowadays, for example, like there's like a mixture of ideas between how the national team should play. Yeah. How would they play? Would they play like we have always played? Or like try to adapt to what's going on right now, for example, in Europe. Like, So there's like, if we want to win something, we should change our play style. Yeah. But there are some others that no, we have to continue playing as we were before. It doesn't matter if we don't win anything. This is the way we are. So, and basically this is surrounded just by one person, which is James Rodriguez. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like the ones who want just to win something, like this is my case. I want to win something. I don't want to be just like the second guy, I say, okay, the risk is that you cannot have him because he doesn't play according to what is requested and demanded today. Yeah. But some other people prefer to watch the guy doing his magic in the pitch. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have like other type of style or dance, let's say, with Luis Diaz, for example. And you see also the way he plays is like a fun way of playing. You enjoy it when you see him. Yeah, the way he moves, the way he tries to do something, the way he dribbles, it's interesting. It's quite fun. It catches your eye, yeah. And you end up liking him. I mean, the Liverpool fans love him. Yeah, and of the way he plays, and of course his character and everything. But I think it has to do with the way he moves and the way he tries to do things to empathize with people, and that people find some sympathy and love him. Yeah, that's what I think, and it's the same thing with James.
Yeah, there's like there always seems to be like a lot of nations they sometimes have these crises of characters. Like, do we play the way that we've always played, or should we adapt to the modern way of doing things? It's just like in England, playing out from the back. I constantly see when I watch, football shows talking about football. There's a lot of and fans. Why does every team have to play out from the back? Why does Brighton? Why does Brentford? Why does Bournemouth? Why does everyone have to play out from the back? Why does Burnley have to play out from the back?
Yeah.
Why can't you play a different way? And it's like in Spain, there doesn't really seem to ever be that conversation about whether you should play out from the back or not. So it's like there's teams in England playing that way, but then saying playing out from the back's not really our football culture. So why are we doing it? Whereas in Spain, that is their football culture, at least in the modern era.
Yeah, in the modern era, yeah.
Yeah, and so they're like, well, no, that's just the way you play, the best way to play and win. And, this kind of thing. There's these existential crises sometimes. Okay, so...
And actually, you see nowadays, Brazil is suffering it. Yeah?
Yeah.
Because they don't have this identity. They don't have this player that, could be Neymar. It's not Vinicius because Vinicius is adapted differently. So it's like, they don't know what to do. and that's why they're struggling now.
Yeah, Brazil's an interesting one. The Brazil national team in particular. That's for a future episode, I think, because Brazil have been going a long time without a trophy, which for them is not what they want, or what the world expects either. But they're usually you go into a World Cup and you think, well, one of the favourites is Brazil, but I haven't felt that way for a while. But anyway, that's for the Brazil episode. But a great moment in Colombian national team history was prior to the 1994 World Cup, where in qualifying in the South American qualifying. So South America is a little bit different from the CONMEBOL qualifying. The federation is a little bit different from in other confederations, where there's just one big league where everyone plays each other home and away, and then a certain amount of teams, depending on how many people are in the World Cup, any given World Cup, because FIFA change it, qualify for the World Cup. Venezuela is the only nation that hasn't qualified as of yet from the continent. And during that qualifying, there was a 5-0 win against Argentina.
Yeah,
which was not a bad Argentina side. It's not their greatest, but it wasn't a bad Argentina side either.
They hadn't been defeated for 33 matches before the qualifier.
Yeah. And that was a big result, which led to a lot of people having Colombia as one of the favourites to win the World Cup in 1994. Was that the feeling within the country at the time going into the 1994 World Cup? There was a really good chance of winning it.
Definitely. I mean, I was 5 years old, maybe, but I remember how crazy it was. I mean, every goal it was scored that day, there were people outside screaming, dancing, going super fast in their cars, honking, and everything was amazing. And it was like basically winning that match was like if we had won the World Cup. Yeah, it was too much. And actually, the thing is that, for example, everybody thought that Colombia could win that World Cup. Pelé was one of these people who said, I think Colombia is going to win the World Cup.
Famously, yeah.
I think that this type of narratives that they were created around the team was the reason why Colombia performed so badly. Yeah, because they actually believed it. The players believed it, but they didn't. I mean, you can believe it in a nice way. Yeah, I mean, like in Qatar, Argentina knew that they could win it, but they were focused and they did it. Yeah. I think in the case of Colombia, it was more like, without playing, we're the world champions. Yeah. It was something.
Yeah. Overconfidence.
It was. Yeah, sadly. And the thing was that, as I said before, they were icons. Yeah. And they were shown everywhere. And everything had like a dramatic story behind, for example, at that moment, because of the relationship he had with Pablo Escobar. Reneguita was in prison, so that's why he's not in the World Cup. Yeah, and actually the same coaches at that moment, once they defeated Argentina in that match, the first thing that the second coach said to the first one was like, "This is the worst thing that could have happened to us, because now everyone against us are going to say that the only thing that we can do is winning the World Cup."
Yeah,
they knew it. They knew it, but they didn't do anything about it. When you hear the Maturana, that he was the coach at that moment, about the preparation, yeah, I mean, it was just a matter of, when Argentina won the last World Cup, the first, they had like a world tour, and they were playing in China, in Australia, in Indonesia, just to get some money, yeah? And it was the same thing that happened to Colombia. They were traveling to Saudi Arabia, China, just to get money, but they didn't win anything. So the preparation was so awful, because they were like, they were showcasing the team, but they were not actually training and preparing. Yeah. When there's a very famous interview in Colombia in which they asked the head coach, because the first match Colombia had in that World Cup was against Romania. And Romania was coming with their golden age as well. And he said, okay, so what do you know about Romania? He said, nothing. I mean, this is something that it could be unforgiven in these years, you know.
Yeah.
You don't know anything about your team, you're out. Nowadays, it's impossible. But that moment, he said, no, we don't know anything about Romania because I think Romania has to worry about us. And they did, and they defeated us. Yeah, because actually, Romanian coach, he was spying Colombia in this world tour that they were doing. They saw a couple of matches, they knew exactly what to do, and that's why we lost.
And that was a pretty good Romanian side as well. So you want to have a look at them. You want to know about them before you play them.
Exactly.
You got Georgie Hadji there, who some players have said. I watched Dennis Irwin on Stick to Football the other day, and he was asked his most difficult opponent, and he was saying, Georgie Hadji. He said Stoichkov, but he said Georgie Hadji was really difficult as well. So yeah, but I remember that World Cup. So I was 15 for it, and we didn't get now, because you can get football from any country, pretty much, if you want it. We all see football from other nations, and players are playing all over the world, etc. But at that time, we knew there was good players like Asprilla because we'd seen him in Serie A. We knew that Colombia had really good players, and we'd heard that they were a really, really good team. But we hadn't really seen them play because that was the only time you really kind of got to see the teams was in the World Cup. So we're all sitting down to watch the World Cup thinking, Colombia, this is one of the favourites. And then it's kind of like, oh, really? What? Is this the team that everyone was talking about? It just didn't happen at all, did it?
What could you expect of a team that in the hotel they were staying, they had their families, they had journalists, they had people from the mafia, they had everyone around. I mean, it's very difficult to concentrate and try to prepare a tournament like that. But as I said before, they didn't care about it. They thought that just by being there in the pitch, they were going to win all the matches. Yeah, because in the World Tour they defeated Bayern Munich. Yeah, it's true, but Bayern Munich, without the main players, they played against Milan and they defeated them without the main players. So it was a difficult thing. Yeah, so it was having sponsors, having drug dealers, having journalists, having everyone around was not a good way to focus on what they had to do. And then that came to the consequence of what happened in the second match. That is they are in the hotel, and the story is that the head coach is with the other coach preparing the match against the United States, and they get a message on the TV that I suppose that was the way they could communicate or something like that, saying, this player, Gomez, if you put this player in the starting lineup, we kill him. Because they thought that he was the responsible for the loss against Romania. So how can you prepare a match and try to win it? And to be honest, Colombia had all the potential to defeat the United States in that World Cup. But how can you prepare that when one of your players, you can start with one of your players because somebody said that it's going to kill him? I mean, everything is out of context, and all the players were out of context in all the World Cup. Yeah, because they didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to respond, how to react in everything that was going on around them. Of course, this is what happened. Yeah, it's not just to justify the preparation was terrible, but at the same time, the fact that they were just like pawns, and they were moved like, okay, you have to sign this, you have to refilm this, you have to come in and you wear this shirt and say that this product is the best, and the match, you don't need to prepare for the match, we're winning. And on top of that, you have a threat. I mean, it's difficult.
Well, you've got a situation where you've got overconfidence, due to good results going into it, and then you've also got the threat of the narcos putting pressure on the players to perform. And in my opinion, people don't perform at their best when they're frightened. Particularly when you're playing a confident sport like football. They've obviously got the ability to be there in the national team, but confidence is plays a huge part in that. And that brings us on to that USA match and not just Colombian football, but in the whole of football, probably one of, if not the most like tragic events to have ever occurred, which was involving Andres Escobar, who was like, if people didn't know him as a player, he was a great player. He was like a captain. He was like a really nice guy. He was looked up to. He was the poster boy of Colombian football. If you had, the likes of Asprilla and Valderrama and Higuita being a bit crazy. This guy was the opposite of that. He was the reliable guy. And he scored an own goal in the game against the USA, which meant that Colombia went out of the World Cup, that some expected them to win. And of course, he was sadly shot dead outside a nightclub on the return home. What was the effect on that incident in Colombia? How was that received?
I think it was devastating because, as you said, he was like the role model of players in that moment. And actually, he played a match against England in 1989 and he scored in Wembley. There's a match that is 1-1 and he scored the tie. And he had been injured for a while. He came just for the World Cup. It's kind of unfair. And once they got out of the World Cup, the first advice they were given was not to go straight to Colombia because the situation was not nice for them. And he was the only one who decided to go and face that situation because deep inside, I think he believed that he was the main responsible just because of that own goal. And that's not the case, but that was what he had in his heart. And he went and he was running interviews, explaining and apologizing everywhere. But in such a conflictive country like Colombia, in which you still had problems with Pablo, with the drug dealing situation, we still have them. But at that moment, I think people didn't think about it so much because Pablo Escobar had been murdered or had been captured and murdered months ago. So it was like, okay, now we're in peace. It was a fake peace, and everything he brought to Colombia is still there because that he created a culture, and that culture was what killed Andres Escobar. He actually played in Atlético Nacional. He was one of these guys who won the Libertadores in 1989. He was going to sign for Milan in those days. Actually, I think he was going to spend the holiday in Colombia with his family, and after he was moving to Italy or something like that. And I would say from my perspective, I think that it's very sad to know that this type of situations happen in Colombia, because it's like the first thing that if you talk about. It was quite fun. For example, the first time I went to France with my wife's family, that the only thing we could talk about was Valderrama, Higuita, Alvarez. It was fun, but at the same time, they mentioned that little thing, and you can talk about these players, Valderrama, Asprilla, all of them, but the people who love football are the ones who can tell you about them. But in the case of Andres Escobar, everyone knows it.
Yeah.
Because that was a very, very particular thing about my country. So that's sad. And that's something that I think to this day still runs around. I remember my mother saying in a match in which, I don't know, somebody scored an own goal, said, I hope they don't kill him. This is a normal thing that happens in sports. And it's like now, every time that something bad happens to a Colombian player or we got eliminated for some reason, and maybe it's because in the penalty shootout against England in Russia, Carlos Bacca, Pickford stopped Bacca penalty. Now Bacca is going to be there and everybody is going to threat him and is going to say bad things on him. And just like something that happened a couple of weeks ago, like the Millonarios head coach, that he is an icon and he was an idol for us for years because he was part of the big championships in the 80s. As we couldn't qualify to the finals, Atlético Nacional did, and they won. the first thing they did was calling him and said, if you don't leave the city, we're going to kill you. So we still have this, in the culture, and it's something that unfortunately I would say that is very difficult to remove. Yeah, because it's been 30 years since that happened, and there are just like little things that you can just remind you of that. Yeah, and that's unfortunate. I mean, that's why that moment was devastating, and everyone who can tell you exactly what happened. It's like 9/11 for everybody knows what was happening that day in Colombia when he was killed. So it's not something nice, to be honest. And it was very sad because he had a lot of potential, and maybe he could have had a better career and better, I don't know, he could have be considered one of the greatest of all time for us, but couldn't happen.
Yeah, it would have been nice for him to have been remembered as a great player rather than, he was a great player, but rather than, as a great person and the person that happened to. I mean, it's one of my favorite quotes is from Arrigo Sacchi, which is football is the most important of the least important things. In terms of everyone loves football, a lot of people, have a huge passion for it. We all love it, but at the end of the day, it's not worth dying over.
Yeah, no. And I 2 years ago, if you remember, Luis Diaz's father was kidnapped, and that immediately that okay, so this happened, and the first thing that comes to your mind is Andres Escobar. So okay, again, here we go again. Yeah, and I repeat what I said before. It's sad to know that all of these things always happen in the same place.
Yeah, I mean it's a reflection of society, but I mean, what is the future for Colombian football and Colombia as a nation? I mean, obviously Colombia's moved on from the narcos era to the point where when it was a really bad situation. With football, I guess it was kind of the best of times, the worst of times. On the pitch, it was the best of times, but driven by the worst of times. Where is Colombia these days, and what do you think the future is for Colombian football going forward? Can we expect to see more of these kind of incidents, or are you hopeful that this could change?
Okay, in terms of clubs, I think the situation is not positive, because I think that the only thing that we're gonna get to, or the only thing that we can just have at the moment, is try to be more competitive locally. Unfortunately, the way the CONMEBOL have organized the Copa Libertadores is basically a tournament in which Brazil invites other countries, but they win. Yeah. That's the way we see it.
It's dominated by Brazilian and Argentinian clubs, but the Argentinian clubs aren't winning it.
Not even Argentinian. I mean, they are like strong contenders, but at the end, it's always Brazilian teams who are playing the finals.
Yeah.
I mean, Boca Juniors played the last year's one, but they lost it. I mean, the last time a non-Brazilian country won a Copa Libertadores was when River defeated Boca Juniors in Madrid.
Yeah.
And the last team who was neither Argentinian nor Brazilian was Atlético Nacional in 2016. And we were talking about 9 years ago.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in that aspect, I think that Brazilian football is going to get stronger and stronger, and it's going to be difficult to, unless they change something, it's not going to be something different. And talking about the national team, I would say that, I mean, we just reached the finals in the Copa America against Argentina, which was something positive, and it was something that everybody was hoping for, at least to reach the finals. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because, and I firmly believe this, in terms of talent, Colombia is very talented, and they have great players, and they could win anything. In terms of mindset, it's a different story. And there's no connection, between both. Or, I mean, we're still looking for that connection. So, I mean, we have the proper mindset, we have the proper technique, so now we can go and try to win something. And I I firmly believe that the day that this team removes some people from the past, and I'm going to be very specific, I think if James couldn't make it in the Copa America, he's not going to make it. Yeah. And we are just like, we're ignoring, for example, that we have another player like Diaz in Liverpool, that he's doing it great, and we're losing his prime because the priority is a 33-year-old guy who is basically a journeyman in football. Because you can remember, okay, you cannot say, James, you think about him and the first thing that comes to your mind is the national team, because maybe Real Madrid, but he's not like the guy from Real Madrid. He's just one guy that played a couple of seasons there, did it well, but not enough. So I would say that in terms of talent, I can see that there's some improvement. In terms of like mindset from the people are demanding more, because it's the same story. We got just like the golden age with Asprilla, Valderrama, Rincon, Alvarez, and we didn't win anything. In 2014, we had Cuadrado, James, Falcao, Ospina, and we didn't win anything. So it's like now we have a different age. They are not like, I cannot consider them as a golden age, but they reached the final. Yeah, in this. And if you hear them, when they are interviewed and everything, they always talk about like reaching finals and trying to win something. And this is something that you didn't have before. I find it positive, but let's see how can we just like, combine both and just to try to give a step forward and try to win something else. I mean, actually, you have like players now in good leagues, like you have players in the Premier League that are very great, like not only Diaz, but you have Munoz in Crystal Palace, you have Lerma in Crystal Palace, you have some others in Spain, in Italy, that they are doing it great, and that you can make a great team out of it and try to fight for something. I don't know. I don't think that World Cup, but I know that, for example, we're being a little bit more realistic nowadays with what we're expecting. We are not like the same Colombia as 1994, that just because we won one match, we thought that we were going to win everything. Now it's like, okay, if we want to perform well in the World Cup and we want to move on and reach something else, we have to improve what we did. Okay, we have to go further than 2014. We need to reach the semifinals. If we reach the semifinals, we're happy, because we know that the next step would be the finals. And at the same time, you think, okay, if Croatia could do it, why can't us? Yeah, we are a bigger country, but the mindset is different. So that's what I think. I mean, we can reach something, but there are lots of things that we have to change not only as a society. We have to demand more from them, because sometimes there's a common phrase in Colombia that says that people demand more to the football players than to politicians. And it's partially true when it comes to the politicians. When it comes to the players, it's not enough, because I think it's a different context, and I think in each context you have to demand what you need to demand. And if you want to earn something, you want to win something, and you want to move ahead, I mean, things have to change. And okay, it's a process. And I see that there are other places in South America, like Ecuador, that they are doing it great as well. So the competence is interesting, and we'll see what's coming. But this is the way I think about it. Yeah, it's interesting, it's complicated, it's possible, but we have to work a lot.
Yeah, well, there is one positive at the moment for Colombian football, and it's the fact that the national team shirt by Adidas is a beautiful, beautiful shirt. To the point where it's got that nice retro vibe. So I'm tempted to buy one. So yeah, that's definitely something to be positive about. Maybe Colombia hasn't won a title, but recently, but they've certainly got the best shirt, I think, at the moment. Okay, yeah. JP, thanks very much for joining the Football Culture Podcast today. I've never been to Colombia, but it's been a country that's always fascinated me. Fascinating country, fascinating football culture, and talking to Dave made me want to visit. So that's definitely something I need to do in the future and take in some matches. And now I know the best clubs to go to. Okay, well. That's it for this episode of the Football Culture Podcast. Thanks to JP. And we've got 3 other episodes available that you can listen to in the back catalogue. And we're available on all the social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, etc. So just search for the Football Culture Podcast for that. Okay, thanks very much for listening. And see you on the next episode.